Hello, welcome to another episode of Sit Down by the Fire. This is episode 3. We are interviewing, say your name.
Brian, I'm Brian. I'm an author. I'm a YouTuber. I'm just all around busy.
And as always, here with my co-host.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eric. I go by Eric Beerthaler92 on YouTube. So it's a pleasure to be here.
So, just getting to the questions. Favorite non-horror movies?
Oh, do you want to go first, Eric, or do you want me to just answer the questions? Sorry, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure exactly how this was going.
But yeah,
Okay.
so Junebug will be asking his questions first, and then after he's done asking his questions, I will ask mine.
Okay, sounds good.
Well,
So
there's
favorite-
something for the answer.
So favorite non-horror movies. Probably more like adventure movies, like Indiana Jones, or something along those lines, like Jungle Adventure, Sea Adventure, like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, stuff like that. Nothing like too far removed from like the thriller side of horror. So it kind of all accumulates and comes around and does everything's under like the horror umbrella some way or another.
Yeah, I love 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I think the Disney version, when Disney was cool, I think they definitely have the best version of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah, I only thought of that movie at that precise moment because it's right next to me. But it is a great movie.
It is.
Yes. And it's probably the best version of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The guy who worked on the Disney version also worked on Jaws, right?
Yeah, he made Squid in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Then he worked on the Shark in Jaws.
And then the guy who wrote or who directed 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, it just proves what a great man Walt Disney was. It was one of the Fleischers kids, and Disney and the Fleischers had an animation rivalry back in the day. And Walt Disney was one of the first people to hire his son as a big-time director because Walt loved his work.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even sure, like, well, do you really want to work with me? Because you and my father had like a rivalry. And he just said, no, it's okay. And I just was like, say what we want about Walt Disney, but like, that takes a lot of guts, is hiring your rival's son for a big-time movie,
Yeah, and it also shows you how different Disney was then compared to now.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah, like, we'll support the work of people that we think have the knack for making a good movie instead of just having anyone make a movie that you think is perfectly marketable for the mainstream.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I know. Obviously, being a horror fan, you like your kaiju movies as well.
Yeah.
But what horror movie director would you like to see want to make a kaiju movie?
So, I am kind of a fan of what's his name? He directed Love and Monsters, which had like the giant crab at the end. Let me look it up because I don't think he's made too many movies, but Love and Monsters was like a post-apocalyptic horror comedy, with huge radioactive monsters, and I think if he made a kaiju movie, he would do it service in terms of it being lighthearted fun. But for a more serious movie, I'm not quite sure he'd be able to do it. But his name is Michael Matthews. But that was a great movie, and I think he would be able to pull that off, making at least something a little different in the kaiju genre.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's probably a mainstream
Okay.
like like Paramount releasing it, but it was still pretty good.
We all have those one movies that, it doesn't matter what type of mood we're in. Like if we just had a really bad day, we just need to watch one movie. What's the movie for you?
Oh, my go-to?
Yeah, like let's say you had a really bad day at work, or a really bad day, and you're just like, I need to put in a movie just to relax, kick back, grab a cold one, and just,
Yeah, mine's definitely got to be my biggest guilty pleasure, which is Planet of Dinosaurs.
That movie, yeah.
Yeah,
Funny thing about that is, so in my second movie that I made, I was trying to find like public domain dinosaur movies, and I happened to have found that, and I thought, hey, public domain is a dinosaur movie, so because of that, I had it playing in the background, and then eventually I finally saw the movie because I'm doing this series on my channel called Let's Watch a Movie. It's a series where I will live stream all these public domain movies.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of them. Then I finally saw it, and what you said about it describes it perfectly.
Yeah, it's just one of those movies where you could tell their heart was in the special effects, and not really the pacing or the acting. I think the script was sound for the characters, but some of them just couldn't pull it off.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm actually writing a novelization. Well, I wrote a novelization for Planet of Dinosaurs, which should be out hopefully soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And because it's public domain, you certainly can. Oh, and Junebug left. Uh-oh.
I think his thing was frozen for a bit there.
I think so too. Yeah. Shoot. Sorry about that, but yeah, it's an awkward silence. But yeah, I guess I could ask him my questions, and then he can. And then, he can edit it, edit all that later on.
Yeah.
So my first question, are you a fan of the Godzilla or King Kong movies? If so, what are your favorite Godzilla and King Kong movies?
I am. I'm actually... So, funny story to sideline that one is I wasn't for a while until the 2014 movie was coming out. I was when I was really young, and then there's this period where I kind of grew out of it. And before Godzilla, the 2014 came out, I was like, I watch a lot of crappy movies like Sharknado, these crazy, zany movies. Why can't I embrace Godzilla? So then I decided to dig into the filmography again. And there are some really genuinely fun and even good movies that came out of those kind of movie series of either King Kong, Godzilla, Gamera even. But between King Kong and Godzilla, I'd have to pick the original King Kong. And then for Godzilla, it's definitely the original, but I think a close second would have to be Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack. That's just a pretty popular opinion as being one of the best Godzilla movies, but I think it's also got a lot of interesting things that the ones that came before and after weren't really toying with.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I definitely would... I would agree with that assessment. GMK is one of the best Godzilla movies ever, but the title is a little bit too much of a mouthful. That's the one complaint that I have. I mean, heck, I love the movie so much. I have a poster for it right there.
Nice.
Okay. Wow. Man, even in the back room in rural Kansas, you still get tech issues. StreamYard is really making me look very professional here, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. So, Junebug, because of that, I went ahead and I asked my first question. So, that'll have to be something that you'll have to edit and post. So,
yeah. Or we could just keep it raw, right?
It might be more professional if you were just to.
I'm sarcasm.
Oh, okay.
So. What you've interviewed people on your channel before. What would let's just put it to people you could theoretically get. Like, as cool as it would be to interview John Carpenter,
right?
Probably not going to happen. But what would your dream interview? One of your dream interviews be?
probably, I don't know if he would still be able to do it. He's in his 90s. It'd have to be Roger Corman.
Yeah. Well, he's getting close to 100 now, so
I know, it's crazy.
it's still working.
I know he hasn't produced any movies in a while. I know he has a couple in the works, but I miss those movies, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and he hasn't directed. He hasn't directed anything since Frankenstein Unbound, I think.
Yeah, and he's produced a lot of movies recently that, well, in the past like 10 years, but then he kind of just slowed down. And then people are saying he's still working, but I haven't seen anything. Not to knock his older films or anything. There are a lot of fun.
Right.
Let me see if I can think of anyone else, because they're like, I like to talk to authors too.
Right. I mean, I know that you and me are. I was going to announce this towards the end, but like that, you and me are big fans of Steve Alton. I'm actually going to be interviewing him next. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And I know you and me are big fans of his books, and I would say if anybody really wants to interview him, obviously go for it right now because. First of all, he has Parkinson's, and he's made that public. But I also heard he does have cancer. So,
oh really?
Is what I've heard through the grapevine. I'm not going to confirm nor deny that, but
yeah. Other authors that are worth mentioning that I have reviewed or I'm just good friends with are Max Hawthorne and Michael Cole, which I'm both good friends with them. I've only interviewed one of them though.
Yes. I guess, what are some of the newer horror movies that I guess you're kind of looking forward to watching this,
Well, I'm actually going to be seeing the new Meg this Friday.
Yeah. I hope it's a lot better than, listen, I like the Meg movie, but I kind of have to put it in a different universe than the book because it was not my Meg, I guess, is how I have to say. I miss the character of Meso and Terry. And Jason Statham, listen, I love Jason Statham, but that's not Jonas, you needed like a nerdy action hero, not like I know. I remember reading somewhere when Jan de Bont was going to make it that they were looking at John Cusack as Jonas.
Oh, yeah.
Which I could kind of see that, but
yeah. And one big problem that I had with the Meg movie, a lot of people pointed this out. That big gaping plot hole, look, I get it. They want to have the element of surprise, but where in the world did that second Meg shark come from?
Yeah, they had said that only one went through. I don't know.
Exactly. Like they said, only one went through. So where in the world did the other one come from?
Yeah, I don't. It's
the screenwriter.
Yeah,
That's where it
I
came from.
remember. I read it. I put it in the book. If I remember correctly, they did kind of explain that too. So it's been a long time since I read the first book.
I listened to it recently, an audiobook.
Yeah.
I think what happened. So I know that the first Meg came up because it was feasting on the other one, and the blood acted as a heating mechanism for the shark. I don't quite remember how the second one got up though.
Right.
Maybe it fell up behind the other one.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier that you're an author. I've written stuff before. Eric has written screenplays. One of the things that a lot of writers struggle with, at least on my end, is coming up with names for characters. What's your method of doing that? How do you come up with names?
So when I come up with a name for a character, it's the first thing I do. And then I write the name down, I say it out loud. I'm like, does that sound like an actual person's name? And I also have to try to remember if I've used that name before or not.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
And,
but
oh,
I
sorry.
usually just take like one person's a person's name and then kind of have an interesting last name to some degree.
Yeah. One of the things I at least do, like I'll use like try to use like names of families that don't exist anymore. Like I've used Philopator, which is Cleopatra's her family's last name.
It's kind of like
Or
using Lovecraft or something like something that people aren't alive for anymore. I've
well,
actually,
or no living descendants. Where like they can't. So they can't sue me. Like I think for one character I named him Edwin Bach after Bach, the musician. So I'll usually try to come up with interesting names.
Yeah, like I tried doing the same thing because like say for example, Matt is just such a common name.
Mhm.
So I remember when I wrote a zombie movie like 10 years ago now, I was wanting to find unique names, and so then I remembered the character Fritz from the Boris Karloff Frankenstein, and I'm like, hey, that is a pretty unique name, and yet I can see someone actually having that name. And on top of that, it also definitely can be a reference to things that you love. So that's
Yeah.
also something I have done too. Like say, like take names from other movies and whatnot and use it for yours. And even John Carpenter even did that when he made Halloween. So
Mm.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Right. That's a great way to do it too. The only problem nowadays, though, if Michael Myers is named after a studio head, I believe.
Yeah.
Is so the story heard. Nowadays, though, you have to worry about the guy getting offended. Like, you named a killer after me.
which is, and from what I heard, John Carpenter named the character Laurie Strode after a girl that he used to date.
Yeah. I mean,
Interesting.
Well, like one time I wrote a script, and Eric has kind of known about this. See, for a horror movie once, I wanted to show love to the hot cheerleader girl and have her be the final girl. You know what I'm saying? Because, come on, why not have the girl who is very promiscuous? She actually becomes the final girl. I think that'd be kind of cool. So in my early script, I named her after the promiscuous girl in my high school. Her name, which she had a very promiscuous sounding name already. Her name was Kat. So
It kind of goes with the territory.
exactly.
I've actually one of the books I'm working on right now. I was having trouble trying to come up with a last name for one of the characters, and I was actually at work and walking through the drink aisle. I'm like, I like the name Brisk.
Well, I've literally gone as far to with coming up with names. Literally naming a character Dr. Richard Pepper.
Another way to kind of make names is take something that actually exists and then change it a little bit in a way where it's
right.
It's a real name, but it's like close enough where people can kind of think like, oh, it's kind of original, creative in a way.
Well, one of the things is a joke. Well, more as a joke in some ways. I named a character because there was kind of history behind it. I named a character Herlock Sholmes because, well, there was a book in like 1912 called Lupin versus Herlock Sholmes, and it was meant to be Sherlock Holmes, but 1912 they couldn't get the rights, so they made it. And so they made Herlock Sholmes, but then that character is public domain. So I'm like, well, I'll just sit there and use Herlock Sholmes because it's just like that. So I've come up with interesting names, stuff like that, or I'll just find a public domain character. Like here, it's not the character, but here. Maybe an homage.
So basically, it sounds like what happened with Nosferatu, like how they couldn't get the rights to the characters, so they just completely changed their names. Like Dracula.
Yeah, well, at least Nosferatu came up with original names, sort of. I mean, some of them. But Herlock Sholmes, that is such obvious ripoff. Like Count Orlok, you could say, well, where do you get Dracula from that?
Yeah.
Or yeah. Anyway, so you did mention you're an author. Is there any one of your books that you think would make great movies?
Yeah, there's one I'm actually currently trying to make longer. That I think it flows like a movie. Like you read it, you think you're watching, you feel like you're enjoying a movie while you're actually enjoying reading a book. But some of them I think are better off as just books, and other ones I think there's a possibility.
Yeah.
There's some of my books that they take a while to get going in terms of build up and character development. So you kind of have all that stuff, and if you had it in a movie, it would just be like, here's this person, here's that person, let's get to the killing.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sadly, we just don't make the movie. They don't make the movies anymore. But I kind of like those movies sometimes that just where we just know more about the characters and everything. Like who knows? I mean, maybe if you get the right director involved, people would say you have the Godfather of creature feature movie.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
But what are I guess what you're known as horror show entertainment, horror show. I know you through both channels, so it's confusing sometimes. So
Yeah, and I have a new channel too, so I wanted to kind of branch off. So
yeah, but what's one of the horror? What's one of the, I guess, movies that maybe fans would just be really like just surprised that it's maybe I don't believe in guilty pleasures because you shouldn't feel guilty for having pleasure. But
Yeah.
what's one of the horror? What's one? It doesn't have to be horror, but like a movie that your fans would be really surprised you like that. Maybe you'll admit for the first time.
Probably Jaws 3 or 4.
Listen, Jaws 3D. I do like Jaws 3D.
Yeah.
And Lance Guest. I'll defend Lance Guest because, listen, for whatever reason, I can't put my finger on it, but I buy him more as the son of Roy Schneider than I do Dennis Quaid.
Yeah.
He just kind of, I don't know, maybe not necessarily like the son of Lorraine Gary, but Lance Guest just has that look, I guess.
Yeah, I think Lance Guest looks less like Michael than Dennis Quaid, but I think he acts more like Michael than Dennis Quaid.
Right.
Because he's a little bit more secretive about the shark to his mother, and you kind of feel like he was like that in Jaws too. Like he didn't want to tell his parents he was going out sailing. So, but then with Dennis Quaid, he didn't have any connection to his parents in that movie, outside because he was just in the aquarium the whole time. So you kind of didn't have that interaction. You didn't have that way of making people think like, oh, this is the Michael we know and love.
Right.
Yeah, and in Jaws 4, there was that infamous scene where the shark roars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would rather have a movie be so bad it's funny, and Jaws 4, a lot of points, is that so bad it's funny movie.
Yeah, and then you listen to the Jaws 4 soundtrack, and you know how in the beginning it goes like in the soundtrack, not the shark roaring.
Yeah.
There's literally a song or a part of a song on that soundtrack that's nothing but I'm like, what am I listening to?
Eric, before you That's that made me just think of a bonus question. So, Erica, you can ask your questions after this. And it's kind of something that you mentioned, Eric, in one of your videos that you would like to see a legacy sequel to Jaws.
Yeah, but I want to make myself clear, not a remake, because if it ain't broke, then don't fix it. Because Jaws is one of my all-time favorite movies of all time, and now is the time to do it because Richard Dreyfuss is getting pretty old now, and he's one of the only remaining actors from the movie who is still acting. So.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I guess that's the thing. I mean, what do you even do with, if they make Jaws 5? Like, for me personally, I think I would at least get Richard Dreyfuss, and honestly, I would get Lance Guest because he's still acting, and he kind of needs to redeem himself a little bit for
Jaws 4, yeah.
Right. And come on, Dennis Quaid is not going to do Jaws 5.
I doubt it. I highly doubt it. There is no way that he's going to do it. Sorry.
So,
right now, my camera's out of focus. I'm trying to get back into focus. Sorry.
That's okay.
Well, there's something for the editor.
Yeah, I think if they did a legacy sequel to Jaws 5, it will happen because it kind of happened with Jurassic World. So they released Jurassic Park in 3D, and then a couple of years later, we got Jurassic World. They just released Jaws in 3D, so I'm pretty sure they're banking on that to make a Jaws 5. If it didn't do well, I didn't really look at the numbers of when that came out, but if it did well, I'm sure they'll hop on it. It's like a testing ground.
I had an idea to call it, kind of since Jurassic World and Jurassic Park, even though they're the same franchise, people act like they're different franchises, which is weird. But so I had an idea to call it Amity Island.
Yeah, or even like make it not about sharks and make it about giant crabs and call it Claws. I don't know.
Yeah. See, I had the idea of assuming the trench does not have Brian and I know, since we're big fans of the Meg, as long as they don't have the death scene from the book, make it a megalodon, but have it would be interesting because I guess I don't know how much deep sea diving you could do at Michael's age, but use the death scene from the death scene in the original Meg.
Yeah, when he's in the mini sub.
When he's in the shark, and he has to.
Oh, yeah.
Spoiler alert for the. So Eric, sorry if you plan on reading the Meg. Spoiler alert.
I'm just gonna put you on mute for a little bit, and then as soon as you're done, okay. How about this? When you're talking about the spoiler, have your hand up. As soon as the spoiler's done, put it down.
Okay. He crawls into the crawls into the shark, and then like there's whale blubber and everything, and he has a tooth that he always carries, and he literally cuts the shark open through its heart. Like, steal that for the book, because I think that could actually top the shark exploding, and be like.
It'd have to be a huge shark, though, in Jaws 5 for that to work.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Well, I mean, I would think that you would have to make it a megalodon for Jaws 5.
Yeah, but then you have the Meg coming out, and you have the Black Demon, which didn't do well, but it's still a new Megalodon movie, so...
Well, Black Demon almost seemed like it... I didn't see it yet.
I haven't seen it either, but I have it. I just haven't watched it.
It seemed like it's what the Meg should have been in some ways, based on the trailer.
Yeah, I heard the shark wasn't even in it that much, though. Like maybe 5 minutes out of a 100-minute movie.
Huh. All right.
All right. Is all of your questions?
Yep.
Okay, so funny because we were talking about a Jaws legacy sequel, so it's perfect for this question. How do you feel about the current trend in Hollywood with the legacy sequels? Like, how they did with Halloween, having Jamie Lee Curtis back, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, how they had that Netflix movie, which I heard was bad, but yeah. What are your excuse me? What are your thoughts on that current trend?
I think it started with Star Wars, and then no, sorry, it started with Jurassic World, then Star Wars, and then it just kept on going. Actually, no, yeah, technically it started with those, but I think the trend it's been handled poorly for the most part. I think they like Texas Chainsaw 2022. I won't spoil anything, but the whole legacy angle of that movie was handled poorly. Um, and I think they should go back to not remakes but reboots if they really are running thin on ideas. Because at least with a reboot, you can have a whole new original idea and not have to worry about the cast member dying before the trilogy or whatever they're trying to do is completed, or have any risks for them getting injured because they're old. But if you kind of do a whole new reboot, it's a safer option, I think, for the studio, and it allows more creativity in the series and for the screenwriters and everyone involved.
Yeah, well, in some ways, I actually kind of agree because, like, one of the things like we run into with when they do Friday the 13th, for instance, which I'm gonna safely say I think that Peacock show is probably canceled because I even called baloney on the Peacock. Eric, you could testify. I called baloney on the Peacock show that was happening with Friday the 13th because, first of all, Peacock is owned by Universal,
Mm-hmm.
and the current rights holders of distribution wise for Friday the 13th is Warner Brothers.
And they
Yeah.
own HBO Max, which is now just called Max.
So, do
Yeah.
you really think that Warner Brothers is going to give the rights to the streaming rights to Universal?
Maybe if there's some sort of contract they have where they have to,
Or
other
they
than
could,
that, no.
or they could co-work
No.
together
So
on it. Warner Brothers
now,
Universal would be an interesting
the
combination.
only problem that we have with the Friday the 13th actors is a lot of those actors have not acted in a long time.
Yeah.
And listen, I mean, I did like Never Hike Alone, but I said this that I think that fans. This is the problem too. Sometimes fans can make things overrated. In some ways, does that make sense?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Fans made Never Hike Alone overrated. Like they acted like it was the greatest thing since somebody put peanut butter on bread.
Yeah,
And
and part of that comes with them not having a Friday the 13th property or product in a long time.
right, but Tom Matthews, you could tell he has not acted in a long time. He came off as very stiff. And I'm not saying I'm not expecting like Academy Award level acting in a Friday the 13th movie, but I at least want quality. I mean, so that's the problem we run into with making a legacy sequel to Friday the 13th is a lot of those people have not acted in a long time. I mean, the only one that's really kept up with acting really is Corey Feldman. Do people really want to see Corey Feldman back in a Friday the 13th movie?
Yeah, but I kind of would like to see a sequel to 2009's Friday the 13th.
I kind of would too, in some ways. Eric, I don't think it's going to happen, but like one of the things we were talking about, Hugh Jackman said he's a big Friday the 13th fan, and that his dream role was to play Jason. So we thought, well, why don't we offer him the role of Tommy?
We definitely could, yeah.
So, yeah, no.
All right, so my next question. You mentioned remakes, so it's perfect for this. Which bad horror movie do you feel like needs a remake? Because, a lot of good movies have been remade, but I don't think that many bad movies have been remade. So what are your... So if you had to name any bad horror movies, what one would you want to be remade?
So I think this one is, you could classify it as a bad movie, but it is still enjoyable. But Madman from 1982 definitely needs a remake.
Uh, I think I remember seeing that like maybe once on AMC. I don't really,
Yes.
but that was like in high school, so I don't even remember that. But I've definitely heard of some of the popular YouTubers talk about that. I need to rewatch that again.
Yeah, it's
So
definitely got some crude elements in terms of effects and acting, and I think the background story on the killer and the whole you have to say his name above a whisper and he'll come get you. Those are really cool ideas, and they weren't wasted in the original, but I think a remake could help with polishing it up a little bit, not only with the effects but the script.
Okay. I haven't ever seen it, but I definitely have heard of it. So yeah. Okay, so my next question. Did you see the Winnie the Pooh and Grinch horror movie?
No, but I've wanted to. I've seen some reviews on Winnie the Pooh and the Mean One, but I haven't seen them yet.
So with Winnie the Pooh, you can watch it on Amazon, and the Mean One's gonna finally be streaming in October. Yeah, because I know that they did put it in theaters around Christmas time of last year. I wanted to go see it, but none of my theaters in my area were playing it.
Mhm.
So I'm like, hey, at least I can finally watch it. Granted, almost a year later, but at
yeah,
least I can watch it.
Yeah, the
yeah,
Mean One. Sorry, go ahead.
it's just a very interesting little trend right now. Public domain character horror movies.
Yeah, and the Mean One had the guy who played David Howard Thornton, who
Yep.
played Art the Clown. So that's why it probably was a little bit more popular than it should have been, from what I've heard. I mean,
Yeah,
The Winnie the Pooh at least, no, the Winnie the Pooh movie at least looks like it's more competently shot and everything. Like it actually looks like a film. I think the Mean One has a cheaper quality to it based on the trailers. But
But yeah, the Grinch is not public domain, so the way how they got around it is under parody law, and
Mhm.
so basically they had to make it more of a horror comedy, and also because of that, that's why it's called the Mean One, and they just don't call him the Grinch.
yeah,
So yeah. All right, my next question kind of goes into the previous question. Do you think we will see a Mickey Mouse horror movie when Steamboat Willie becomes public domain?
I mean, I wouldn't put it past anyone to make one. I mean, like you look at production companies like Wild Eye and ITN, and they have everyone and their mother trying to make a new slasher or a new horror film. So if that goes public domain, I could see multiple movies on that because Mickey Mouse is a hugely popular character compared to the Grinch and Winnie the Pooh. Arguably, he's way more popular. So I could see
Yeah.
way more films based on that.
Yeah, and if they make a horror movie out of it, maybe they can, instead of Last House on the Left, maybe it can be called Last Mouse on.
Maybe.
That would be funny. But yeah, they definitely will be walking on eggshells because that's Disney's mascot, and I mean, Disney is the reason why that it takes so long for something to become public domain. So
Yeah, I think if they were to do a Mickey Mouse horror movie, it'd have to be more of a rat monster or a mouse monster rather than like a typical guy in a mask slasher villain.
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So, my next question: are you a fan of the Universal monsters like the Boris Karloff Frankenstein, the Bela Lugosi Dracula, and all that?
Yeah, I've seen them all at least once or twice. The originals. I still need to check out some of their sequels. I'm a big fan of Creature from the Black Lagoon and The Wolfman.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Did you see the Wolfman remake
Yeah,
they made back in 2010?
yeah. I was actually going to see it in theaters. We couldn't find a parking spot because Alice in Wonderland was playing.
Uh, that's a shame. But yeah, I remember the Wolfman. That was the first R-rated movie like that I was able to see on my own. It was because I turned 17 right around when it came out in theaters, and so
Yeah.
I was pretty excited for that. I'm like, yes, I can see an R-rated movie in theaters, and I don't. have to scramble and try to find an adult.
Yeah, I think the first R-rated film I saw in theaters without a parent, I don't even know. I've seen so many movies. I know one of the first horror movies I saw with my mother that I was actually uncomfortable having her watch with me was Piranha 3D.
I can see why, because that movie.
Way back in
Um,
2010, me and mom went to go see Piranha 3D, and
um,
the look on her face in some of those scenes.
Oh, I can imagine.
I don't. This was not really a horror. I don't know. Me and my mom have always had a strange relationship. Not to say like not to suggest anything, but we're like we would go see movies, but like some of them would be like ones that like you definitely shouldn't be seen with your mom. Like I remember seeing American Gangster, and like some of the shots in there were like, yeah, I'm seeing this with my mom. But
Yeah.
nothing. I don't know how much could top seeing Piranha 3D with your mom. Because
Well, during that that showing, there were also kids in the theater, like under 10 years old, and I was like, I feel very weird.
well, I'm sorry. I'm going to blame the parents on that one because
Oh yeah, they walked out pretty quickly.
you should not be letting your kids see a movie that is R-rated, where like literally they even advertised that it was. And look at some of the. I'm just going to say this. Look at some of the cast members in Piranha 3D. A lot of them were.
Adult film stars.
Yeah, adult film stars, and I mean, I think Alexander Aja must have just like he just decided I'm going to make a horny movie basically because even though hey, I do like that movie.
Yeah.
And
we don't call it a horror movie. We call it a horny movie. It sounds similar.
right. Oh, and it has. And what makes it really cool is it has the grandson of Steve McQueen.
Yeah, that's a whiny not a video game, but whiny kid. Like I still. So when I think Kelly Brook, I think her name, the one with the red bikini, she dies. The look on his face is like really, like she was super nice to you. He when she dies, he's just like, oh man, I'm like, oh, what a dweeb.
Right.
So, my next question: what versus movies do you want to see get made?
Versus movies?
Yeah, like say, kind of like Freddy versus Jason,
Yeah.
or like that. Yeah.
Leprechaun and Wishmaster would be pretty cool. It'd be hard, but it'd be cool.
That would be interesting.
They're by two different companies, right?
Yeah, that's the problem for a lot of these people who want versus movies is that they're owned by different companies. Like, oh, you can just do that. I'm like, no, they're owned by two different companies.
Well, you could do something. I mean, they can't trademark a leprechaun.
No,
so you can.
They can trademark the franchise. So they just can't trademark the Leprechaun. So if you do a Leprechaun movie, you would have to, if it went under the company that owns Wishmaster, which I forgot which one it was, they would have to do a whole new Leprechaun, like with a whole different origin and background characters and everything.
So you could make a movie about a leprechaun versus a djinn. So
you could do that too. I would love to have Andrew Divoff and Warwick Davis.
That would actually be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, it wouldn't be the same, but at least it's something.
And then also, so like, I'd love to see a creature feature that's a versus movie that's not like Sci-Fi Channel level. So maybe like doesn't even have to be a brand name, but I'd actually like to see a movie where it's a big budget shark movie, but there's two different kinds of sharks fighting each other.
So like great white versus tiger shark or something like that, right?
Yeah, or great white versus bull shark, like the thought of most deadliest shark versus the actual most deadliest shark.
Yeah, or like great. You could do Great White versus Megalodon.
That'd be a short film.
Yeah.
That's like Godzilla versus a megalodon. It just wouldn't work. The shark would be eaten or something.
Yeah, easily.
Oh, come on. It could be like a Rocky story, like how he fights the Dolph Lundgren,
I think they actually made something on YouTube of Godzilla versus a megalodon, and it was pretty quick.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
So, my next question. If you had the chance to meet any dead horror movie celebrity, who would you want to meet?
I've seen so many old horror movies where these actors are like, oh, you know who I'd like to meet? Robert Forster. Alligator, Vigilante.
Very underrated actor, or at least he was.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good choice. I mean, I appreciate not going for the obvious. Oh, Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff. Like, it would be cool to meet those guys, but
yeah. And then another one I used to really want to meet was Roy Scheider, but then I heard he's kind of a drama queen, especially on the set of Jaws 2. So it's like, I don't know how it would be with fans.
Yeah, from what I heard, he really didn't want to do Jaws 2, but he was forced to, like, by contract. And I even heard that he got into a fist fight with the director.
Yeah, he also claimed insanity and messed up his hotel room, but that didn't work.
Well, I heard a lot of stuff about Roy Schneider, only on the set of Jaws 2, and I heard a lot of people who enjoyed working with him. I mean, I know he has a son who is he's actually our age, which is the funny part, I don't know if he does interviews or not, but his name is Christian Schneider. But no, I mean, Roy Schneider would have been cool to interview. I mean, Robert Shaw. I would at least maybe want to try to reach out to Ian Shaw, his son, to interview.
Yeah, he's definitely making like a lot of efforts to be just like his dad in Jaws and like with plays and stuff.
Yeah, I would just feel sorry for Ian because, he talk about a tough life he must have lived. I mean, what people don't talk about a lot, he was orphaned. Mm-hmm. His mom died when he was 6. His dad died when he was 9, both of alcoholism.
I didn't know that.
Robert Shaw died the year Jaws 2 came out.
Yeah, he did. I knew he died of alcoholism. I didn't know his wife died and his son was orphaned, though.
Yeah, he died in 1978. I think he was just walking, and as he was drinking, he just collapsed. Because remember, I mean, a lot of British actors believe, oh, if I get drunk, I'll get a better performance. I mean, that's just their method of acting. Mm-hmm. I mean, Tom Hardy is a drunk. And like he says, in order to play Venom, there's an interview out there somewhere. He said, in order to play Venom, I have to get hammered. And like, if you watch the Venom movies, I'm sorry, you could tell that he is hammered. So it's kind of funny. So, but a lot of British actors just believe that. But Robert Shaw would have been cool. I mean, I would talk to him a lot more about Jaws. I would talk to him about Jaws, but like, some of his other work too, and like some of the books he's written. Like, Brian, have you ever read some of the books he's written? He wrote some like, you're thinking like, wow, this came from Quint, like there are these like historical epics that he wrote. Some of them, or like some of them are like the most beautiful love stories. It's like,
yeah, I never knew he was an author even.
Yeah, he wrote a few books. Robert Shaw was a very interesting man. I mean, obviously, it would have been cool to, even talk to Bela Lugosi or even Vincent Price or one of those guys, but because it's one of the interesting things. People always say how we need new horror icons, and I think that Art the Clown is probably the closest right now, right?
Yeah.
Well, you also could say Jigsaw as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but now they've kind of shot themselves in the foot with this new Saw movie, just because how they are making an in between wall.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to make them look the age they were when they were in those movies.
Right. So, but why not? I don't know. I mean, but Eric, did you have any more questions?
Yes, I do. Well, let me get it. All right. So, any living horror movie celebrities you would want to meet and get their autograph?
Um, I'm trying to think of some as I look at my books. Like, how does that help?
I guess Kane Hodder or someone like that.
uh, maybe. I mean, there's a lot of horror movie celebrities that I really would like to meet, and I actually have met quite a few. Like Adam Green as the director, he was really nice.
Right.
But if I were to meet like a horror movie actor or actress, um, maybe Lynn Shay. She seems like a fun older woman to talk to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would just. I've just been kind of just reaching out to, interview just pretty much anybody I could think of that would be willing to be interviewed by YouTubers, at least is the thing, or even get a, talk to or anything. Just because, I mean, that's something I would rather do is make, like getting an autograph is cool, but actually getting a chance to talk to them would be something that I would really want, just because, the autograph, if I die, who's to say that my family's going to save that? Like, oh, just they might throw this away or sell it on eBay or something,
Yeah.
But at least that's one of the reasons I do like interview, some of the celebrities, just because it's like this is the internet's forever,
Yeah,
And,
there's definitely a charm to being able to interview someone and have it so that you're actually one-on-one with them instead of having to stand there and talk to them or just get their autograph.
right.
Like when I interviewed John Pogue, I was ecstatic. Like that was the
Yeah.
that was the best
Yeah.
interview I did in 2020 probably.
Yeah. Well,
Twice.
one of the interviews that I remember you did, he makes some interesting movies. You interviewed a local Kansas City filmmaker, Todd Sheets.
Oh yeah, yes, yep.
Yeah, he makes some very interesting horror movies.
Yeah, what was crazy is when I interviewed him, I wasn't really familiar with the shot on video genre, so I threw in a couple of his movies. I'm like, what is this?
Right.
But he was a very nice guy to talk to. Like even after I had the interview, we talked for probably like an hour after that. He's always very busy, and I know that he had made some films like in the 90s and early 2000s. Then he had like a heart attack, and then he kind of was like, I need to make more movies. After that, he had like because he was having a downbeat kind of I don't want to do this anymore attitude, and then when he had the heart attack, it was like a rejuvenation for him.
Right. I just know about him again because he's from this area where I'm in, Kansas City, and so he has a very underground following here in Kansas City. He's like the big horror movie director. A lot of people were, and there's some people who actually like his movies, and there's some that think no.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Eric.
Yeah. So my final question: what are your thoughts on the upcoming Exorcist Believer?
I'm hit or miss with that one. I think there's definitely like it's a legacy sequel, and I think they're trying to do it, recapture the magic they did with Halloween. But it's a totally different kind of film. The Exorcist and Halloween are just two totally different movies. Um, but I think if they retain that raw terror from the original, at least a little bit, then they'll get extra points in my book. But you also have all these elements to it where it's like you have a modern camera, you have modern actors, you have modern effects, and it's not crude anymore. It's very polished, and it's like, well,
Mhm.
so is it going to even be able to recapture the vibe and essence of the original, or is it just going to be another modern horror movie? You know,
Yeah, and also on top of that, there have been so many possession movies like that came out, like The Devil Inside and Devil's
The
Due.
Last Exorcism, and
So yeah, Last Exorcism, Exorcism of Emily Rose. It's like, okay, what's gonna separate this one from the other ones?
You actually really want to do a actual good Exorcist movie. Eric, you did mention Emily Rose and how they said that the real story of Emily Rose, Annalise. I can't think of her last name, but it's Annalise. That girl's story is probably one of the most scariest stories you'll ever see. Far more scary than Emily Rose. And Emily Rose was scary, but if you actually kind of do a movie about The Exorcist, sort of around base it on the Annalise story,
Mhm.
I think you got a horror movie right there because that girl, she was like what, 16, something like that.
Maybe.
That girl went through hell, literal hell, and then the priest got they actually got thrown in jail for murder,
Mhm.
even though there was some. Despite if anybody wants to believe in the exorcisms or possessions or anything like that, there was definitely something wrong with that girl. To the point, I mean, you listen to some of those tapes. I mean, there's definitely something wrong, and the fact that she basically decided to starve herself because Catholics, you can't, according to Catholic religion, you can't kill yourself because if you kill yourself, you go to hell.
Mhm.
So she decided to basically starve herself. I mean, so do something more like that than, oh, Reagan gets possessed again.
Yeah, they did
I,
that in the '80s in the horror comedy called Repossessed.
I know, which I'm gonna laugh if they actually make that,
Canon.
canon now or something, or they. But like I know a lot of fans did not like it, but I actually liked the TV show because
Yeah, I've heard it was really good. I have both seasons. I just haven't had a chance to watch them
the
yet.
second season is better. The second season is better. The first season's trying to say, "Look at us, we're a legacy sequel," and I'm like,
Yeah.
eh. But I just want to know, like, what are they going to? Eventually they're going to do it. What are they going to do with the Omen?
Yeah, the first Omen. I really want to check that out if it ever gets released.
Well, yeah, that's how I discovered your channel when you. It was one of them. I don't remember which one it was. Or you have like 500 channels, so.
Yeah, I think technically I have 4, but I officially have 3 because I forgot the password to one of them.
Yeah, so that's how I discovered you because I was looking for reviews about the Omen books,
Mm-hmm.
and you reviewed some of the Omen books, and I'm like, because the Omen is actually my favorite horror movie, and the reason why is because I don't think that movie would have worked without Gregory Peck.
Right,
Oh,
100%. His son actually had died around the time filming, before
right.
filming took place.
Yeah, uh-oh. See when Eric comes back in.
Yeah.
But no. Okay, but no. Yeah, his son died. Actually, committed suicide around the time, and they're like, "Are we really going to give this script to this guy whose son just killed himself?" And yeah, no, it really worked because of that haunting performance. And I don't think that movie would have worked without Gregory Peck.
Right, exactly, 100%.
Although supposedly it was shot, the original ending where he actually kills Damien.
Oh yeah, and then they changed it.
Yeah, but that footage has never been released. I have to admit, there is a part of me that wants to see that footage.
Gregory Peck stabbing a kid.
Yeah, but the only reason it didn't happen was because Gregory Peck. I mean, this would be like if for the people who watch this afterwards, this would be like if Tom Hanks in a horror movie and he kills a kid, because that's sort of the image Gregory Peck had, So if you can imagine, Tom Hanks, first of all, playing the father of the Antichrist. And then he kills the Antichrist. I mean, first of all, I think a lot of people want to see that nowadays, but that's the only way I can compare like Gregory Peck to a modern day actor now,
Yeah.
Tom Hanks. But no, I mean, and I like a lot of the sequels, I mean, I think you get giggles out of Omen 4. So I mean, it's not the best, but it's just
yeah, they have a TV show out there too called Damien. I have that. I still haven't watched it.
I saw a little bit of that. That first of all, Sam Neill, I think, was the perfect older Damien. That guy, I don't know, like I'm not criticizing the actor, but like that guy who played older Damien in that one, he kind of came off as just a drunk Irish guy. And Damien should at least be somewhat intimidating. I mean, because he's the Antichrist, and
right.
I mean, here's my thing. Like, even as a Christian, I know this is going against Bible, the Bible and everything. But like, why, we should have it. Like, remember in Omen 3, Jesus was born, or
right,
again.
Right.
So you could have why not have it where have Sam Neill come back or something, and we have to have the Damien fight Jesus or something like that.
Right. Make it really wild.
Yeah, no, because that's the only way you could do it now. And plus, I mean, and I don't even know if you could get Sam Neill back, because I heard he's sick.
Yeah.
I don't know. Get Jeremy Irons.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, what?
Well, yeah. What were you saying?
I kind of have to cut this a little short, if that's okay. I just have something I have to do with my family after this.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't know when Eric's.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Yeah, I don't know when Eric's going to come back, but yeah, no. This was definitely fun. Despite my tech issues.
That's all right.
Yeah. But yeah. Thank you. Hopefully, one of your books can be made into a movie someday.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you.
All right. You have a good day or night, whatever time it is.
Evening. Yeah. So
Yeah.
see ya.
All right. Have a good one.